Descent into Darkness, Season 2, A Call of Cthulhu Campaign. Welcome to Deathwatch's Call of Cthulhu Campaign Season 2, Descent into Darkness. My name is Travis. I'll be your keeper tonight. Before we get started, let's just introduce all the players and the characters they're playing, and we'll start with you, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris. I'm playing Johann Muller, a retired German historian living in America.
I'm Brandon, playing Dr. Wallace Andrews, doctor who currently lives in Boston, Massachusetts, involved in investigating the strange death of Mr. Dooley.
I'm Justin, playing Lance Monroe, curator of a museum of the occult and gregarious investigator of the mysterious.
I'm John. I'm playing James Whitmire, the sometimes criminal, but all-around good guy.
Well, last we left off, Johann was on the banks of the Miskatonic, shoeless, sockless, with a handful of hair. But we'll leave him there for a while yet, and we'll begin the session with the good Dr. Andrews. So, you had been left almost alone in the bar while Whitmire and Monroe went up to the library. So, since you were free of most distractions, you have been afforded an opportunity to peruse Mr. Dooley's personal journal, along with the other evidence in your possession. And after a bit of reading, you begin to gain an impression that Mr. Dooley had a real paternal love for his nephew, or at least a strong sense of duty about taking care of him. But he also had a frustration with the boy's odd behavior, although nothing you read in the journal seems like undue frustration. Aside from that, there's a strong thread of grief over the death of his sister, who was taken by the Spanish flu like your wife and daughter. And the other thing that stands out to you is a strong disdain for authority, and that seems to stem from prohibition and the fact that he's had a long-time dream to also turn Mr. Dooley's into a bar. But there's enough detail in what you've read that even though you're not, a psychotherapist, you did go to medical school and you did learn about diseases of the mind, and perhaps you've done study on your own because your sister's in a sanitarium. Which one was she in? Do you remember? Did you have that detail, or she's just in a sanitarium?
Yeah, let me check real quick because I think I did write it down. Oh no, just a sanitarium. I didn't have the specific one.
Okay, so you can attempt with a hard medicine roll to at least form a hypothesis about what afflicts Charlie Murphy, Mr. Dooley's nephew.
Okay. I have failed.
Indeed. Well, it is hard to make diagnosis, secondhand based off of somebody's journal. So nothing in your medical school or nothing you've read after your graduation springs to mind and seems to fit the way he describes his nephew behaving. But as far as the details are, it's, he has certain behavior where he orders things in such a way, and he will actually get frustrated with, or he would get frustrated with Mr. Dooley if the order of his things were messed up in any way. That was communicated in one little anecdote in Mr. Dooley's journal. A couple more things. Your standing with the order has risen by 1d6 points due to favorable interactions with order members Dr. Call and James Clark. So you can roll a 1d6 and add that to your order standing skill.
Nice.
And that's in the skill tab on your character sheet under the additional.
Got it.
Speaking of Dr. Call, he's managed to actually sit at the bar quietly while you read, although you have looked up and seen a certain excited tension about the man. He would look at the items of evidence you're perusing with open curiosity, but he does have the good grace not to interrupt you. Although at one point, he does say something or kind of mutter something that you hear. He's like, I don't think that Mr. Whitmire is entirely honest of a person. But he seems to be excited at the prospect, But go ahead and give me a listen check.
I have succeeded extremely.
So you hear somebody come into the Hermetic Order of the Silver Twilight, and they greet some of the people out in the lounge, and you recognize the voice. It was at the dinner that you guys had after your initiation. It's that booming sort of voice that's used to giving command, and you recognize it as the voice of Police Sergeant Logan Terry, who I think, Whitmire, you communicated. I know you had sent them a telegram, but they left before they were able to get it. But I felt, even though we didn't do it explicitly, you almost certainly would have told them about Sergeant Logan Terry. Is that correct?
Yes.
So yeah, Andrews, you have fresh in your mind that Logan Terry is perhaps not something to be, or somebody to be trusted. What specific details did you give of the situation, Whitmire?
I told him about him trying to warn us away from the investigation, and then my unwilling meeting with him where he was trying to get me to do illegal things. And everybody knows that I walk the straight and narrow when it comes to the law.
Right. In any case, he makes his greetings to the men in the lounge, and he heads towards the bar where you and Dr. Call, or Andrews and Dr. Call, have been this whole time. And he greets you, and he's like, gentlemen, how are you doing?
Well, I'll give a polite hello.
Yeah, and Dr. Call doesn't seem to favor the man very much, but he also does the same thing, a polite hello. But you can see that Logan Terry looks at you with special interest, and he says, oh, you're one of the new recruits, one of James Whitmire's friends, is that right?
I am an acquaintance of Mr. Whitmire, yes, and a new recruit.
Oh, well, it's always good to have new blood. I'm sorry to hear he left Boston. We had a philosophical disagreement when we last spoke, and I had hoped for the opportunity to continue the discourse. Do you know when he'll be returning?
No, I'm afraid I have no idea. Maybe never.
Oh, that's a shame. Yeah, he didn't mention it, but I've heard that you're all part of the same society. I forget the name, the long one. He had said he was investigating a murder case. Were you part of that as well?
All right. So, since I know that, he was trying to push James off of this, then I don't want to tell him the truth. So I'll be like, no, of course not. I'm a doctor, not a murder detective.
Okay. So, Whitmire uses fast talk a lot because he's highly skilled in it, but lying doesn't necessarily always mean fast talk. It depends on the way in which you're doing it. You can use any social skill and convey a lie. So you could use persuade if you're good at that, which means, you'd be stuck in a conversation down here with him for a little while. Or you could do charm to throw him off. Did you want to take one of those tactics?
Yeah, it'll have to be persuade. That's my best one.
And do you have any idea in your head, how you might do that, or you just want to leave it to the skill roll?
Yeah, well, I'll lean on the fact that it is technically not something a doctor generally does, right? Investigating some old murder. So the general tone will be something of oh, I wouldn't even know where to begin investigating a murder,
Right. So you're persuading him around to the idea that you have a especially large lack of qualities that would even make you good at doing that.
Yeah, and I'm so busy being a new member of this lodge, and I wouldn't even know where to start.
Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and throw that out.
I have failed.
Damn.
Okay. 1 second.
Push it.
Push it.
No, it's okay if I fail. Because I know from James, the sort of man we're dealing with, it's like, it's fine with me if he knows I'm not telling him the truth. I'll stubbornly stick to it.
Okay. Yeah, you haven't had a lot of run-ins with police, but he doesn't press the issue. But you see his eyes narrow, and you could actually throw out a psychology to get a clearer picture on whether or not he what his mindset would be. Yeah, you think that he just dropped it at that point immediately because he's certain that you're someone he'll want to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
Also in the back of your head is that Monroe and Whitmire just went up to the Order Library, and that's where they're currently at right at this moment. So that's just a little detail for you.
Yeah, I guess I better take my leave then and go warn him that this guy's here.
Yeah, as you head out, he says, "We'll see you around, Doctor."
Yes, hopefully so. Have a good day, sir.
Yeah, and Dr. Call gets on your heels, and he's kind of looking back at Logan Terry and at you with curiosity at the whole exchange because he picked up on the tone and tenor of the words. And when you get a sufficient distance away, when you get to the stairs that lead up to the second level, he's like, "Oh, what was that all about? That was less than cordial, I dare say."
Yes, well, Logan Terry is not an ally in this investigation, and James Whitmire had an encounter with him where he, an unpleasant encounter where he's attempted to force Whitmire from taking part in this investigation. So for whatever reason, he is at cross purposes with us, and now I'm going to warn James that he's here in the building. But there are people who are against us investigating this particular murder. I mean, I've had my own experiences with 2 hired thugs approaching me to warn me from asking any more questions. So there is some danger to this game, Dr. Call. I must warn you. Be a good time for you to take your leave of it, and I wouldn't think any less of you.
No need, Dr. Andrews. I will stand fast. You can count on me. This is just like one of my detective novels.
You're a good man,
all right.
Dr. Call.
Oh, thank you. So we'll just switch over to Whitmire and Andrews up there in the library. Let me set the map up real quick.
Can you remind me what we were doing up here?
We were kind of biding our time, just kind of looking through stuff, kind of searching for that eye or this. What was the name of it? I've got it in my journal. Let's see, the Order of Starry Wisdom or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, Cult of the Starry Wisdom. So looking for any references in that while we bide our time before we go and meet the detective for dinner.
Okay. So do you want like a library use to see how successful we've been?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
There's another person in the room with us.
Yeah. Has
He's
he been here
watching.
the whole time?
Yeah, you guys came in on him, but he's been reading quietly, and he only looked up from his book and gave you a nod. All right. So back in the library of the Hermetic Order of the Silver Twilight. Couple things first as well. Monroe, your standing with the Order has increased by 1d6 due to your favorable interactions with Dr. Call and James Clark.
Okay. Let's see what we get. Not too bad.
Congratulations. Whitmire, on the other hand, your standing with the Order has decreased by 1d10 to a minimum of 1, and that's due to your interactions with Order member and Police Sergeant Logan Terry.
Well, he's not
Down
a
to
real
1.
member.
Can you go that low?
I don't know.
A minimum of 1, so I think you guys started with 5. That just brought you down to 1.
Yeah.
Order standing flex.
Yep.
Yeah, so you've been up here searching again for something new and interesting, but nothing in the books that you've looked at has jumped out at you, but I will take a spot hidden roll from each of you. If you would prefer, Whitmire, you could actually use your stealth if that's higher, but it looks like your spot hidden's pretty good.
Yeah. I'm buried in books.
Is this before I'm there?
Yes.
Okay.
So Whitmire, you see a tattered paperback of all things. It's not on the shelf. It's actually on top of one of the shelves. You just happen to, catch part of it poking out. And I think
Okay.
last time we left off, Whitmire, you had said you were just kind of idly browsing, so it kind of makes sense that you're the one to pick it up.
And what is it that draws me to this?
Well, you were kind of, anytime you're in a room, you're sort of looking for things where interesting items might be stored. And also, you just look for exits or interesting notes in the room. So you just happen to be looking up at the bookshelves, which were quite tall. They're some 10 feet tall. And you just saw that corner of the paperback sticking off the shelf there.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'll reach out and grab it and start. I'll look at the title or the cover page and the back.
Well, I'll pause you before you reach out and grab it, because you do realize that you would have to at least get a step stool or one of the chairs.
Oh, do they have one of those little rolling ladders?
Not the ladder, but you do see, after a short time looking around the room, that there's a step stool sort of tucked in between two of the shelves.
Okay. Yeah, I'll make my way over to wherever that is.
All right. So when you grab the book, like I said, it's a paperback. It's been well read, and the name on the cover is called Nameless Cults, and it's in these sort of garish, pulpy letters that remind you of the pulps that run in magazines and whatnot. But it does appear to be written in English, and it's published by Golden Goblin Press of New York.
Is there an author?
Bridewell is the last name.
Okay. So I'll look on the back of it, or in the jacket, or I guess it's paperback. So yeah, just on the back of it, see if there's any information. I don't know if that's always been around or not, but
Yeah, it is lacking in those sorts of things. It was just the title in those pulpy letters, and then you had your copyright information on the front page, and then you had a title page again, so Nameless Cults, and then translated from Bridewell text is what it says, the original German Bridewell text. And then from there it launches into what the book was about, and you think looking at it, to get some idea, you might have to spend at least a night with it, skimming it to get more information about it.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll sit down on that stool or the little stepladder and start reading it.
Okay, so at that point, actually, does that name ring a bell for either of you?
Nameless Cults.
Wasn't it?
Nameless Cults, yeah.
Not that I can remember.
Okay.
Hold on, let me look back through.
Well, you can do that. I'll have Andrews and Dr. Call enter the scene.
Dr. Cole, please keep an eye out in case he followed us.
Okay, I shall remain by the stairs, ever vigilant.
Thank you, but don't look obvious about it. Act natural,
Of course.
but not too natural.
Of course.
All right, so I'll look around. I don't think I've been in this room before, so what's it look like in here?
Okay, so you have three of the walls dominated by bookshelves, and they would be off to the left as you enter the room. And they have a table, for spreading out books or notes or whatever, and then they have reading chairs, and that's pretty much it. There's no windows outside of the room. There's just the one entry, as you can see on the map. And inside currently are Mr. Monroe, Mr. Whitmire, and a person you haven't been introduced yet. But you can see he's actually he appears to be Catholic. He's actually wearing like minister clothes.
Okay. All right, so then I'll just go right to James, say, Whitmire, there's a Sergeant Logan Terry in the building at this very moment down in the bar. And so I know you had an experience with him. I thought you might want to know that he's here. And he was asking about you. He said he was disappointed to hear that you'd left Boston and asked if I knew when you would return.
All right, I'll try to keep my cool, but I'll my eyes will slide over to that Hector McDonald try and gauge whether or not he heard any of this.
Yeah, go ahead and give me a psychology roll. He seems to be absorbed with his book, so he's either doing a fair job at pretending to do that, or he legitimately is not paying attention.
Okay. So I will ask Dr. Andrews what he said. Like, did you tell him that I was up here?
No. When he asked if I knew when you would return to Boston, I said I had no idea, and that you might never return to Boston. I think that he knew I was lying, but I can't be sure.
All right. So, yeah, I'll start looking around, not like frantically, just trying to gauge best exit, and more to myself say I've got to get out of here. And then what is, other than going downstairs, what have I clocked as the best exit from this library or the second floor?
Well, when you were doing your reconnaissance earlier in the bushes, you did see that there was a fire escape on the west side of the building. So you know you would have to go through the lodge room and to access it. Other than that, there are windows, just none in the library.
Okay.
There were some in the preparation room where you guys roped up to do the initiation.
Were there
That
any
would be
fire
it.
escapes that area?
No, there was just the one on the west side of the building.
Okay. Well, I'll tell Dr. Andrews to follow me, and I'll
Okay, where are we going?
try to make my way into this onto that west side.
Well, I'll follow him.
Well, I'm sorry. I would like to in a lower tone stop by Lance and tell him that Logan Terry's downstairs. Apparently he's asking about me, as if you run into him.
Oh, my good friend, I'll take care of this without an incident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't tell
And
him
I'll-
that I'm
I'll-
here.
I'll take that and I'll head downstairs to talk to him.
I'll
Okay.
shake my head and try to move quicker out of the library.
All right, and you guys were heading to the lodge room?
Yeah,
Heading
that's
towards the west side?
yeah, as that's where I was going to. When we get in that area, I wanted to explain what that meeting with Logan Terry was actually about. As how he was trying to get me to spy on this headmaster at a girls' high school or a girls' school, and he wanted me to grab this gun that he had. He kept saying that it was for leverage, but I'm not stupid. You're not gonna last very long on the streets if you go around just grabbing any old weapon that a cop puts in front of you.
So this is an officer of bad character.
Extremely.
Well, I suppose it is best that we make ourselves scarce then. But if anybody's capable of distracting him long enough for us to get out of here, then it's definitely Monroe.
Yeah. My only concern is that he is going to tell him that I'm right upstairs or something. As you know how he can be sometimes.
Yeah, okay, let's make our escape then. Do you have a path in mind?
Well, there was a fire escape, and I imagine by this time we could probably be in this room, lodge.
Yeah, you guys head into the lodge room, which is currently empty at the moment and well lit. And you see the rows of chairs for members to witness initiations or other things that happen here. Like you've heard some talk about a vote on which charity to support over the summer coming up in the next couple of weeks, that sort of thing. So they would handle that stuff here. Now, it's not obvious where to go from here because you don't see any exits. You just see the dais where the noble philosopher stood and gave his lecture, and behind that, a big red drape. But you can both of you can either do spot hidden or navigation, whichever you might be better in. Yeah, so after a quick perusal of the room, both of you have had successes, but we'll give the nod to Whitmire as you were a little better at it.
Okay.
And you just you see, you take a peek behind that drape and you see that there's a door behind there, which makes sense now that you think of it because the noble philosopher John Scott came out from behind that drape. So let me open that door for you.
Because I'm going to tell Andrews as well that it might be a little weird if you came up here and then disappeared. But I'm not opposed to having you come out here with me. Where's your car, though?
Yeah, I don't have one. I've been using public transportation, but you're right. It would look odd if I just disappeared. So I think I'll make my way back out, and you'll have to get to safety on your own.
All right. When you guys are alone, let Monroe know that I'll meet him up at the Muscatonic University tomorrow, and
Okay.
tell the detective, sorry I missed dinner. I had to make a trip out of town. The more people that reinforce that I'm out of town, the better.
I will let them know. Stay safe.
You too, friend. And then we shared a moment.
You guys do the secret order handshake before you parted ways?
It takes too long.
Yeah, I was thinking we'll have to have a dex check every time you guys want to do it successfully. All right, Mr. Whitmire. So you see this comes into a short hall, which off to your right, you see some stairs that lead up presumably to the third level. And off to your left, you see a door that leads into a room. You're not sure of its contents. But straight ahead should be the door that goes out to the outside fire escape. But we will hold with you there and see how Monroe is doing in his efforts to distract Logan Terry. So, Mr. Monroe, how do you make your entrance into the bar?
As grand as possible, as always. So I'll kind of walk through the door as if I'm just coming in for a drink, and then when I see the officer, my face will light up, and I'll say, my good officer, I believe I've been looking for you, and you're quite an elusive subject. May I join you?
Of course. And he looks at you with the same interest he gave to Dr. Andrews. And at this time, there's the bartender who was shooed off earlier by Whitmire so he could mix the drinks has gone back to his duties, and he'll take your order.
Yeah, and I'll say, Mr. Terry, please allow me to buy you a drink, as they are free. I can afford it.
Well, aren't you a wise guy? And he... One detail you noticed when you came in was he was sort of looking at the bar, swirling his drink around in the glass, but you could see that muscle working in his jaw and anger on his face as he was staring at the bar. But when you made your grand entrance, that's wiped free as he turns to look at you. But there's still a hint of it. It seemed like he wanted to say, well, ain't you a wise guy, with, some sort of camaraderie, taking the piss type attitude, but it was actually a little too harsh. But anyhow, carry on.
Okay. But yeah, I'll sit down. I'll say, yes, a wise guy. In these days and ages, being wise is a rare thing and a very valuable thing as well. But
hey,
let me get down to business, my good officer or sergeant. Is it detective or are you commissioner now?
Sergeant.
Sergeant. Yes, good. Quite a high rank. You must be quite well respected in your profession.
Oh, I'd say so. One way or the other, they better respect me. I run a tight ship over there.
That's exactly what I'd like to hear. Actually, I come to you with a little bit of a request, if I may. As all of us have joined the order for our own purposes. One of my purposes was to try to gain contacts and to further, my circle of rumor whisperers that I might be able to draw from in order to expand my museum. And of course, I'll pull out, one of my flyers from my museum and slide it across the table to him. And sir, you happen to stand in a very particular spot that could be very valuable to me, and as I'm sure I can, provide some value to you in compensation or recompense. I was wondering, good sir, if you would help me with keeping an ear out for any strange happenings that may result in, I don't know, something that might be able to find its way into my museum as a point of curiosity.
Yeah, I might do that, but what's in it for me?
Well, good sir, that's where the negotiations begin. If you have any requests of me, then, you can make them, and I may decide to acquiesce them or decline them at my own peril, as it were.
Well, let's see. You're friends with Mr. Whitmire, aren't you? You guys come from the same society. What is it? Society of Exploring Unexplained Things?
Yes. You seem to grasp the concept quite well.
Well, I don't know. I say leave the detective work to detectives, but, people can have their hobbies.
Yes, and everyone's interests are their own, and I seek to make a profit off of some people's interest in the occult and some of these strange happenings and unexplained things that have happened in this world.
Well, I don't know about all that, but I do know your buddy Whitmire was here. He said he was looking into a murder.
As far as buddy, I have joined many societies in my attempts to gain, a circle of friends, as it were, or a circle of, at the very least, acquaintances that may be able to help me in my endeavors. And just as you are a member of this order, and so am I, I am a member of the society in the same way that James Whitmire is, in much the same relationship as you and I have.
He looks at the bartender and he says, "Hey, can we get some privacy here?" And the bartender, he leaves the room, and he kind of leans in close, and he says, "Hey, Mr. Monroe, I don't know what kind of game you're playing here, but I'm smarter than you think. So let's just talk straight with each other."
Ah, my good friend, I always talk straight. Please tell me what it is you wish to hear.
I need to know what you and Whitmire and your other friends, the good lying Dr. Andrews, are doing here in Boston. Because if you're doing what I think you're doing, I say you should leave the cop work to cops.
Well, my good sir, as you can see, I have my museum here, and I am doing as I have always done. I am trying to advance my museum and, shed a little bit of light to the good people of Boston and those visiting on, some of the darker aspects of the world around them.
Museum work? What a waste of time.
To each his own, good sir. Just as I appreciate that you work effortlessly and tirelessly to keep the good streets of Boston safe, I hope to gather at least a modicum of respect from you in, my attempt to chronicle the goings-on of the past and the things that people would rather, turn a blind eye to most of the time. The things that go bump in the night, as it were.
You're something of a popinjay, aren't you? You know what?
I've been called much worse, but I suppose so.
I don't know why they let people like you into this order. I got no time for you.
Well, sir, you have yet to, try and ask me for any kind of information or, favor. So you have yet to scratch the surface of my usefulness.
I doubt that. I see all sorts of people in Boston every day, and you get pretty good at telling who's who and what's what. And I know there's nothing under the surface with you, Mr. Monroe. And if it's all the same to you, I'd like to finish my drink in peace. But I want you to know I'll be keeping an eye on you and the good Dr. Andrews.
Well, that's your prerogative. Do you believe that we are doing something illegal?
No, but I think you could be messing up good police work.
But truly good police work can never be messed up, good sir. True police work is nothing but true justice, as it were.
Oh, I disagree. It can be if people who don't know how things work come in and stick their finger in it. This ain't your grandma's pie.
While some may think my fingers are sticky, they are in fact very clean, good sir.
I don't know how long you want this conversation to go on, but I think I've had enough.
Well, sir, that upsets me rather grievously, because I had really hoped that things would start off on a better footing and that we might develop some sort of a working relationship. I'm not asking you to break the law in any way, shape, or form. I'm just simply hoping that as fellow members of the order that, we may be able to, have a discussion once in a while on things that you come across or that come across your desk that, may interest me, especially things around, unexplained things that have happened around pagan holidays and things that people would find mysterious and interesting.
So you guys have this oil and water thing. It was almost there from, the first words.
Yeah.
Would you like to alter this with a social skill roll?
Sure, I can try that. Let's see. So which ones do you think would be relevant to this? I could have persuade, psychology.
Well, you're definitely, I think, persuade or charm would be what I'm getting out of your tactic here now.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go with persuade.
Okay,
I
so
don't even see. Oh, yeah, I've got low charm. So yeah, persuade.
his frustration at Whitmire's disappearing act and his cottoning to Dr. Andrews' lie has put him in somewhat of a foul mood, so I'll need a hard success with that.
Okay. Nice.
Oh, nice. Well done.
So yeah, I'll kind of lean into that I see that he's upset. And I'll say, sir, I did not mean to upset you by doing this. And if the companions that I have from the other societies that I have joined in my endeavors have upset you in any way, shape, or form, I truly apologize for that. But please allow me to explain that I may exist in that order, that, their actions are none of my own. And I truly do wish to have a professional relationship with you, good sir, despite the fact that we obviously have very differing personalities.
With a heavy sigh, he's like, you know what? You're right. I apologize.
Oh, no need for apologies, my good man.
Well, so you want me to let you know if there's anything strange. Now, I can't speak to the occult or anything like that, but let's pretend that you're not here investigating a murder, and let's say you just want to help out. If you really want to help out, oh man, I don't know. There's some disappearances at Harvard. That's something police can never get ahead of. Missing persons.
That is a very interesting thing. Do you have any information that I might be able to take a lead on? I was actually recently at Harvard, but had not even heard a whisper of that.
No, it's out of my jurisdiction, but I keep apprised of everything that goes on in the city. I've read what's gone in the papers and in the school paper itself. I mingle with the detectives there. It's, just a student and a professor have both gone missing without a trace, it seems.
Those are exactly the kinds of leads that I was hoping you might be able to help me with. And I truly appreciate the lead on this.
You're welcome.
As with any, grand institution such as Harvard itself, there is always a darker side to it. So I appreciate your effort, and I will take my leave now to go and see what I can find out about those.
Okay. And he offers his apologies again, somewhat sincerely, although you can still see a slight look of distaste in his eyes at you.
Yeah, but I'll stand up. I'll hold out my hand to shake his hand, and I'll say, thank you, good sir, and I truly hope that this is the beginning of a good relationship where both of us may be able to benefit. Perhaps I may be able to stumble in my amateur investigation on something that may be able to help the professionals do their job.
Okay, so we will pause with you, Mr. Monroe, and with the scene at the the Hermetic Order of the Silver Twilight, and jump over to Johann. So, Johann, who's been on this odyssey of the mind, if someone were tracing his movements, they would know that on the late afternoon of June 12th, he lost time in Widner Library. And then on June 13th, during a morning train to Bolton, you are psychically accosted by a man who represents a group he calls the Consortium.
Mm-hmm.
And this seems to set off an awakening of repressed memories, manifesting in a state of lucid dream recollection that night, right at the cusp of June 14th. And from your perspective, so many millions of years later, or so it seems, you wake on the gentle banks of the Miskatonic with the afternoon sun warming you nicely. You can make out witch-cursed, legend-haunted Arkham, whose huddled, sagging gambrel roofs and crumbling balustrades brood out the centuries beside the darkly muttering Miskatonic. So your life up to this point has been a mere 75 years, which does not balance with the millions you experienced after looking into that strange book. And at first, you wondered at that sensation of being embodied again, because in the book you were like a floating consciousness, but maybe not even that really. But then all the aches and pains of old age and the desire to sate both hunger and thirst returned to you after the excitement at holding the De Vermis Mysterious in your hands fades. And you have found, as a historian who sometimes loses himself in books, that no matter to which heights the mind might ascend, the limitations of biology are always a grounding force. So it kind of helps you put you in the here and now again. A couple things before I cut you loose here. Your Cthulhu Mythos rating has increased by 1.
Oh, nice.
So, having witnessed an event of monumental importance within that book, perhaps the very seeding of all life on planet Earth, you have entered a new phase of perception. However, this troubles you because if life on Earth was indeed engineered by beings great and elder, why did they not return to their creation at any point since? And you have this thought in your head that creation is a mistake or maybe a joke played by these beings. Furthermore, you now have a skill rating of 15 in both biology and geology.
Okay.
Those are in the sciences one. You'll have to add them individually. Okay. And this is to represent that you have actually seen firsthand events that others can only deduce from, say, looking at core samples or examining the fossil record. So you've seen actual moments of evolution and the carving out of valleys, the creation of mountains, that sort of thing. However, this knowledge where it rests in your head is it disturbs you, and it reminds you of a German poem called Der Zauberlehrling, in which a half-trained sorcerer's apprentice uses magic to attend to his chores, but the spell soon goes out of control. And the moral message that you Germans have got from that is a sort of cliche that you might state, where you say, "The spirits I have summoned, I now cannot rid myself of again." So in your case, this knowledge reminds you of the length of time you had to endure to obtain it, and that can sometimes put a strain on your mind. So lastly, you are in a state of underlying insanity, meaning any further sanity loss will lead to another bout of madness. And furthermore, you may experience delusions. And before I let you act, one way that knowledge that you gained manifests is you can almost remember the great crush of water and ice that shaped the Miskatonic Valley as you look on it. So there you are on the banks of the Miskatonic. What would you like to do?
I guess I'll pick up the tome and don my jacket, check to make sure like my billfold is in there or not. Look for my cane.
Yeah. Your cane seems to be misplaced. To give me a luck roll on the billfold.
All right. Yay.
Yeah, it's there. You see it's a little soaked, although it has been drying for a little while, but it obtained water a little bit more since it wasn't in direct sunlight. But yeah, it's a little soaked.
All right.
But it's
Then
there.
I'll cast about for my shoes, hopefully.
No, those are long gone.
Ah.
Same with your socks.
Then
And you feel some cuts on your feet too, as though you have been barefoot for a while.
I feel that I'll be feeling a whole lot worse aches and pains as the day drags on at my age, running around like a maniac. So I guess I'll go over sort of to the river, Miskatonic. Is that what that is, or is it a?
Yeah, it's the Miskatonic River.
And I'll see if there's any chance of viewing my reflection, and I'll try to make myself more proper, tame any wild hairs on my head that remain.
Yes, as I described, this is a somewhat gentle, although deep flowing part of the river, but there at the bank, there's a somewhat undisturbed section of the water surface that you're able to pick your reflection out in, and you see in that reflection your remaining hair is flying away in all directions. Do you keep it like long around the sides and the back?
He probably sports a comb over, so like the top part, like the top side, would be long for the purposes of combing over his bald spot. So there could be some flying away, but the rest of it is fairly short.
Okay. Yeah, so the part you keep for the comb overs, sticking in whichever directions it can, and your shame is exposed to the full light of the sun.
Yeah, I guess I'll kind of dunk my hands in the water and try to mat it down across my bald spot, or at least bring it to heel.
Yeah, okay, you do as serviceable a job as you can manage. And once done, what's your next move?
To try to make it into a nearby town, get some shoes, and hopefully make contact with my companions, and maybe also figure out what date it is.
Okay. Yeah, so you can actually see the town you see is Arkham.
Okay.
So I believe that's actually where you maintain your residence
Oh, that makes...
these days. Is that correct?
I don't know. I think you said I'm somewhere around there, so yeah. I mean, it would put me
Yeah.
in close proximity to, was it the university, right? Arkham?
Yeah.
So I'd probably live somewhere around there.
Because you're primarily a pensioner, but you do, guest lectures and things of that nature. Plus, you've known for a while now that the Orrin Library in Arkham keeps some tomes that you've been interested in, although you've been rebuffed by that damnable librarian, Henry Armitage.
My nemesis.
Who won't let you into seat. Yeah. Although that does bring up a point in your mind. You now hold one of the books to be held in the restricted collection at the Orrin Library.
That has me slightly worried, but I'll worry about it when I'm hopefully inside my house.
Okay, so you want to head towards your home?
Yeah, at the very least, I'll begin walking that way, and if need be, I can hail a cab, and hopefully they'll take me.
Okay. Yeah, so Arkham's nothing like Boston as far as size goes. It's a smaller college town, although its population is inflated somewhat because of that fact. And you walk up the low hill, and it comes across a road that leads into one of the towns. And if you were to follow it the opposite direction, it would take you to Bolton. And you could see you have several hundred yards worth of walk along this road before you would reach the outskirts of Arkham.
Oh.
All right, Johann, so you begin your long journey on your aching feet with a few cuts from who knows what along this road into Arkham. And you will see this image at a distance, sort of curious image. Let me show it to you. Actually, show it to everybody.
I don't want to see.
Look at it.
He sews his eyes shut.
I am a doctor.
All right, so yeah, you see this at some distance, a car run into a telephone pole, and some people standing around scratching their heads looking at it. And you
Probably
recognize
those
that
two
car.
kids.
You saw it outside of the boarding house that you roomed at in Salisbury.
Was that when we were Salisbury? Was that
That's the town. After you got off the train, you caught a ride with that vendor in his truck, and you got a room
okay?
at a boarding house where you asked for an edible room, and that's where you that's where you went to sleep. And then you had your dream memory, and the next thing you know, you're outside of Arkham, which would be several hours journey to the south. And you remember seeing this car parked outside of the boarding house.
I guess I'll walk over to. There's a small crowd forming.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of walk over to the small crowd, and like, what happened? What's going on? Are they all right? And try to kind of get a look at potentially the driver or passengers.
Yeah, there's nobody in the car. You do see laying on the in like the passenger area, your pipe, actually.
Man, I went full Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, didn't I?
But the gentleman you ask about, he says, "Oh, nobody saw it. This fellow lives in the house here, heard a big crash, and then he saw some guy run off into the woods yonder. Didn't get a good look at him. It was just a couple hours ago. They're trying to get horse and buggy up here or a horse team up here to see if they can, pull it out of here."
That's most rather odd. Good day. And I'll shamble off as quickly as I can in my advanced age, cursing that I lost a good pipe.
Yeah, give me a. Well, no, we don't need a listen roll. But as you walk away, the men that are talking amongst each other, they ask themselves, "I wonder if this has anything to do with the attack at the library earlier this morning."
Oh. What happened at the library?
I guess somebody broke in, and there was, an undergraduate working there this morning who was apparently attacked by a deranged individual who was trying to get, into a room that she was working outside of.
Dear gods, do they have a description of this deranged individual? Surely we must all be very... Oh, God.
Not that I've heard of. Heard any description?
What?
Probably some vagrant.
What luck that we don't have a description. Thank you again, young man. I'll start hobbling away faster.
Yeah, he kind of gives a quizzical look at your lack of shoes.
It's a warm summer day.
Yeah. Well, some of the kids standing around looking at it are barefoot as well, so it's not unprecedented. All right, so yeah, back on the streets of Arkham, they suddenly seem not the familiar place you call home, but, every window could be somebody who knows what you did. Or, around every corner, maybe could be a policeman who's looking for the deranged individual that apparently attacked a poor undergraduate at the library.
Oh, dang.
So... what's your move?
I don't really think there's much I can do. Try to head home if I recognize where I am. If not, I might have enough money to purchase a pair of shoes to get me home in less vagranty looking fashion.
Yeah, you're well acquainted with Arkham, so finding a shoe store or clothing store should be no problem.
My pants are frayed.
In fact, yes, they were. One wild idea creeps into your mind pending a successful history roll. Okay, so, you've done some study on Arkham itself, the history of the city. You even did a lecture on it. And one detail you picked up in your study of Arkham was that there's a culvert that runs along the main thoroughfares. Maybe the best thing to do would be to get into this culvert system and move incognito back to your home. No one would find you down there.
The way you said that makes me very much wonder. Why not? Why not? I've consigned myself to this fate.
All right, so you see the rough layout where you're standing. It runs in the main thoroughfares, and they're kind of at a slant coming down the hills, so the water just flows in this culvert system. But it's not a rainy part of the year, so they should be mostly dry. And with some care, you do see like a storm drain at the side of the road up by the curb there. That's pretty big. You should be able to slide down that with no problem.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm going to encounter them damn... Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay.
I'll look around first, make sure there's no one looking at me.
Yeah, seems clear. And unwitnessed, Johann Mueller slides into the storm drain, his bare feet slapping on the slightly damp concrete culvert underneath Arkham. And we'll pause there with you for a moment.
All right.
All right, so Monroe and Andrews, you guys were going to leave the hermetic order, is that right? All right, just as you're about to exit and grab your coat, and you, with serendipitous timing, you meet up with Andrews. He's coming down the stairs, and one of the servants comes up and says, "A message for you, Mr. Monroe," and he holds it. It's a telegram on an envelope on a silver platter, which he holds out towards you.
I say, "Lovely, good sir. Thank you for doing your job the best. I'm most grateful." And I'll grab the letter and open it up and kind of look at Dr. Andrews as he approaches it and say, "And I assume that all is well with everything that was going on upstairs?
Well, I'll wait until that servant leaves, and then I'll say, yes, I think he's made his escape.
Very good, very good.
Thanks to you for distracting that officer.
He is a most unpleasant man, and he does not seem to care for you very much at all.
Well, I assure you the feeling is mutual.
Okay, so you
yeah,
you open that envelope and you pull out the telegram, which comes on a little card like that. You guys see all that, or you all see that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a telegram from Johann. Johann, did you want to read the telegram and maybe give the tone and tenor that you had when you composed it?
Yeah, sure. I'll give it a try. It's been a while.
Go for it.
Do you want me to read the very top part or just the...
You can read just the
okay.
message. The other details aren't
Our
important.
mutual friend has insisted that I visit Moosehead Lake, and caught up in the fever, I found that I could not resist. Be careful. His insistence seems near infectious. I'll be back as soon as I can catch the next train. Good enough?
Yeah, that was
Thank you.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So how do you react to reading that, Mr. Monroe?
Well, kind of the first thought that pops in my mind is the ability that I acquired in Peru to force people to do things they don't particularly want to. That's going to pop up in my mind. And of course, I'll pass the telegram on to Dr. Dr. Andrews and be thinking to myself while I say, well, it appears that Mr. Mueller is a bit out of commission at the moment, but we'll have to keep an eye out for this mutual friend that he mentions. And hopefully when he returns, he can tell us which mutual friend he meant.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. And what might be at Moosehead Lake that he's interested in. At any rate, we can't afford to become distracted.
Yes. Let us move on to dinner. I must admit that I am a bit famished at this point in the day.
Okay.
Okay, so,
go
one
ahead.
sec, Brandon. Let me point out one detail. You can see he paid for an urgent message, which means they'll have a courier make some effort to find you. So no matter where he sent it, they'll try to take it to wherever you currently are. And also the message came from Newburyport, MTBA, which is north in Massachusetts. It's quite a far north in Massachusetts, and you understood that he was traveling to Arkham.
Yeah.
So that's apparently where he got off the line. But anyhow, yeah. So you guys can head out. And what were you going to say, Brandon?
Nothing. Just what you're about to say, that we will leave and start making our way to Detective Nick, for dinner.
Right. Okay, so Detective Wayne Nichols,
Yeah.
he lives on the outskirt of the town, sorry. And some effort, or do one of you have a vehicle?
No, I don't.
I always forget who has a car.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect I do.
I do.
What was your move? Well, I guess we could pop over to Whitmire real quick as you make it down that fire escape. Give me a luck roll.
Not today.
So yeah, you get to that ladder that is, maybe 12 feet off the ground, and you climb down it, and it's just like a short hop, so you maybe drop 3 feet to get to the ground. And as you're brushing yourself off and looking around, you see there's a groundskeeper there just kind of looking at you speculatively, but he returns to trimming his hedges. You got to kill him.
I've talked with him before, I believe.
What,
Is it the same one that I had talked to, I think, the first time we came here?
No, it is a different guy, but you are once again struck with the fact that he doesn't really look like a groundskeeper. And even from this distance, you can see the sunken knuckles on his hands.
I'll tell him that you always want to make sure that these things work or in good working shape. You never know when a fire is going to break out. And then I'll put my hands in my pockets and start walking away whistling a tune.
Yeah, he makes no comment, returns to his work, and off you go. What was your next move? You weren't going to go to the dinner, though, were you?
No, I'm not going to the dinner because I don't know if Detective Terry knew about it or, was going to try and follow those two over there. As I was going to try and catch a late train out to the Miskatonic University area or library.
Okay.
Yeah. Wherever
Okay.
Monroe had wanted us to go so I could acquire something for him. As I was going to head out that way and then try and get a room.
All right. So we'll come back to you and we'll head back over to Andrews and Monroe. So you guys arrange transport to the outskirts of town, where it turns out that Detective Wayne Nichols is as wealthy as most people in the order, and that's demonstrated by the large house. It was like an old country house by the look of it, but somebody who was well-to-do or had a large farm, because it's, big and rambling, but it's been modified for this century's tastes and whatnot. And there you are. And when you knock at the door, you're greeted by Detective Nichols himself, who seems pleased to see you, although somewhat confused to see only two of you. And he says, "Gentlemen, good to see you. Where is your friend, Mr. Whitmire?"
I'm afraid he's indisposed and has left town unexpectedly.
Same with Johann. Is he not going to help out?
Him even more unexpectedly.
Well, that's fine. I guess we'll just have to eat hearty, make up for the lack of mouths. Come in.
I shall accept that challenge, my good friend.
Okay. So he leads you into the dining area, and he says, "My wife, Fiona, he says it'll be a minute longer for the meal to be prepared. Would you guys care for an appetizer?" And, that appetizer was in quotes as he goes to the liquor cabinet there and pulls out booze.
That would be most appreciated. You are such a gracious host, my friend.
And how is Boston treating you, Mr. Andrews?
Well, I've always enjoyed Boston. So far, so good. I did have a encounter with some hired muscle recently that put a bad taste in my mouth, but I was able to handle it.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Was it related to what I asked you guys to look into?
Yes, some people trying to convince me to stop looking into this matter.
Well, I was afraid of that, and I understand if you wanted to cease any investigation. I don't mean to put any of you in danger, that's for sure.
No, I have no intention of dropping this investigation.
Well, I'm also relieved to hear that. Well, let's have a seat, have a drink, and we can talk a little bit about what you guys have discovered so far. So yeah, he asked a couple of questions, and so are you going to leave any details back where you are at in the investigation or anything like that?
I'm not. All of the things that I've discovered are perfectly natural and mundane. I haven't, come across any weirdness, so I'm not going to hold any of the stuff I've discovered back from him.
Okay. So as you guys, spend some minutes going over the details and whatnot, you both are looking around the room, as one does when they're in a house that's not theirs, taking in all the knickknacks they have here and there. And you see on the mantle of a fireplace, although it appears to be more decorative than used, a strange figurine of like a toad-shaped figure. It's maybe 6 inches or 8 inches in height, and it's just sitting up there on the mantle, and it piques both of your interests because you're both astute in matters of the occult.
Okay.
And you can give me a Cthulhu Mythos roll.
Oh, these ones are always tricky. Yeah. It's about what I expected.
I got better than Monroe did.
Yes, you
Bring
did.
some luck.
So, at least I'm better than you.
Yeah, so it looks, with your occult knowledge, you guys would guess it to be, perhaps some sort of sect, religious sect that, worships like animism, that sort of thing. But it is quite interesting, and it appears to be pretty ancient as far as you can tell. But yeah. So Detective Nichols is somewhat fascinated with the detail surrounding the Corbett house and the Church of Contemplation grounds. And he professes at that time to say that he was aware of your organization. I looked into the SCU a little bit because that name came up around, the murder that happened outside of Mr. Dooley's in the Corbett house, and the fact that Dooley was right across the street from it. And I was always fascinated in that detail. And with you guys being, more acclimated to, I don't know how you'd want to word it, like spiritualism, the occult, odd little details like that. Do you have any inkling of whether or not, the events? Because I read what your SEU report. I had them send it down from the college there as part of my investigation. Not that any of your members were persons of interest. I just try to look into everything. Do you think that there's something like that going on?
I believe that there's a very good possibility. At the very least, from the information that we've discovered, it appears that some members of whatever cult was involved in the the cult of the Starry Wisdom at the church may also be involved in this, as the same symbology is found in both places. Which actually leads me to a question that I may have had. The report of the arrest at the church had quite a bit that was redacted, and I was wondering if you have any channels that you might be able to uncover some of the names that were associated with who was in that basement.
Ordinarily, I do. In present circumstances, unfortunately, if I were to use those channels, I would put my job at risk. I'm already in trouble with the lieutenant as it is.
Yes. It seems that the good Sergeant Logan Terry is also rather against anyone looking into this matter as well.
Ah,
So,
yes.
if you're not wary of him already, I suggest you keep an eye out.
I know the man. Our similar occupations. We communicate quite often at the order, but he strikes me as the variety of, old cop, the old ways type of cop, and not at all how I would like to see things done and how I conduct myself. Bit of a rough, if you ask me. But this Detective James Barrister, the one who wrote the report, if I remember correctly, he's retired and lives outside of Boston. That might be a way to cut through all this redaction you see here, if he's willing to talk to you.
Well, despite the fact that most of the words in any conversation may exit my mouth, I tend to have a knack at getting people to reveal some details in the process as well. Perhaps I'll stop by and see what I can find out.
Yeah, it couldn't hurt to talk to him.
And what other leads do you guys plan to follow?
Well, we intend to go to the asylum and meet with a doctor that works there and talk about the young boy. And if that goes well, I intend to try to meet with the boy himself and see if I can make any headway. Because I'm most interested in how he was able to sign a confession, allegedly, despite being completely nonverbal with everyone that has encountered him.
Yeah, I don't understand it. My partner got this signature while I was on leave, and, I wasn't always a detective here in Boston. I've done police work other places, and I was somewhat naive to the inner workings of big city police work, and I don't think that it's always on the level. The first thing that, made my suspicions rise was the fact that it was typed. It's not all in his writing, which isn't entirely unusual, but it would be much easier to coerce somebody into signing a random piece of paper put in front of them than getting them to write up a whole confession. And I never did get a good look at it, to get a read on it to see if it felt like his words. And plus, there's the problem of Charlie not speaking in all of our interviews.
Well, I did read Mr. Dooley's journal, and he speaks of Charlie quite a bit, and he experienced some frustrations with the boy, largely due to the fact that he was not very communicative. So I find it extremely hard to believe that he would have been able to sign a confession, let alone write or type one out. So I'm quite convinced that he's being railroaded here in order to close this case, especially when factoring in that the coroner was paid to sign his report with details missing that he knew were missing.
I'm glad you were able to suss out that information. I talked with Dr. Dyclaw a little bit and was not able to get to that point, but I didn't have a favorable impression of the man. He was far too arrogant for my tastes. But maybe if I can aid you in a way, one thing I have found when it comes to murders is, well, first off, you're most likely to be killed by somebody you know. So most of our investigation is interviewing, people close to the victim and really digging into the history of the circumstances that made that person take that action to kill somebody. And you'd be surprised at the level of history involved to get to that point. Sometimes these grudges can go on for a lifetime. So I just want to encourage you guys that no detail is too small. And since it seems you're being stonewalled when you take direct approaches, maybe coming at it from an angle might have some benefit. If I had been given more time, if my base load wasn't so high, I would have looked more into what your members found at the Corbett House and the Church of Contemplation for any link, especially now that I see Mr. Dooley's journal talks about the eye symbol painted on his door, because from what I recall of the SEU investigation, that was also found at the church grounds. Seems like an obvious connection to look into. What do you think?
I believe that would be most helpful.
Yes,
I do have some questions about some other members of the order that you may know. First of all, one, Dr. Call.
Yes.
He's expressed some interest and we have kind of roped him in on some minor level in helping us in finding some contacts, and just want to double check and make sure that he's on the up and up and not someone that we need to be cautious of.
Well, I wouldn't be suspicious of him. I would just be more concerned of, who he might speak to. His curiosity seemed to be his driving attribute, I didn't feel like he was very discreet. He didn't seem to have much compunction when it came to asking about details of, whatever current case I was looking into, even when he must know that those matters are secret, at least until they come out in public records.
And then the other member of the order that we were curious about is the good lawyer, Dr. James Clark. He's a man that we had approached as far as, what the law, some legal concerns on what the law states as far as forced confessions and those kinds of matters.
Well, as I understand it, he works for Clark and Antonello Criminal Defense. They have a pretty good reputation here in town of doing quality defense, but as a police officer, usually I'm at odds with defense attorneys because they're picking apart the case that we put against somebody. So I don't know him well. We just have that natural antithesis. I've only exchanged pleasantries.
In your experience, is he defended people justly, or is he one of the more shady types?
Well, I believe he is a lawyer.
Is he any good?
He is good. He's a lawyer, which I think is the same as saying he's a shady type. So,
okay.
But that could be my prejudice. And at that point, Fiona Nichols comes in she's carrying a platter, like a big platter that has, the top on it, but some help comes in behind her with the other dishes. And suddenly the room is busied with food being laid out, and it proves to be a rather large roast. And she makes introductions, and she has that kind of cheery, or that unstoppably cheery attitude. And she seems to be in her element to have guests, almost maybe like she had a hunger for it, and it's been a long time, so maybe almost too eager. But she says, at that point, Detective Nichols stands up, and he says, allow me to introduce my wife. This is Fiona. This is Dr. Andrews and Mr. Monroe. They're helping me with an issue I have. And she, makes small talk. She seems to be most concerned about, your families, or if you have girlfriends or wives, do you guys share those sorts of details?
Yeah, I don't really have anything to hide. I'm single and not dating anyone, so.
And what about you, Dr. Andrews? Are you married?
No, ma'am. I was, but my wife and daughter were taken by the flu a few years ago.
Yeah, so with
had the desire to start looking again since then.
Brandon, just as you look over the woman, go ahead and give me a medicine roll.
Okay.
So you pick out a few small details that they don't really concern you, but you just think she might be afflicted by something. She looks, a little pale. At every now and then she'll press her, the fist of her right hand kind of just below her sternum, and she'll have kind of a pained look for a moment. But she expresses sympathies for the loss of your wife and daughter, very genuine sympathies, to such a degree that you actually see, a slight shining in her eyes as they've welled up a little bit. And she commiserates and says, "Yes, sir, I think we've all been afflicted by that disease. If you'd like, I attend Mass regularly. If it's okay with you, I'd like to light a candle for your wife and daughter and offer a prayer."
Yes, that would be okay. That's very thoughtful.
Yeah, and you're Catholic background, right?
Well, no, like I had been an atheist, but when I went to Peru, I sort of started becoming a Catholic because there was the priest that let me stay and work at his hospital. So I'm like newly part Catholic.
Okay. Well, she's just talking about what next time she attends service, there's usually an opportunity for people to pray individually when there's not, the sermon going on, when Mass isn't being conducted.
Yeah.
And so, that's what she's referring to. But yeah, you think she's been affected by some sort of minor bug or something like that. But in any case, she's like, well, let's get down to it. This is all Detective Nichols asked for is red meat, more red meat. He doesn't even eat the potatoes or the vegetables. And he looks, for his part, slightly embarrassed at her talking about that. But the food proves to be expertly prepared and is quite tasty. You have that fork tender roast, potatoes that have soaked up all of the flavor from the roast, and it's all really good. But you're growing more concerned, Dr. Andrews, as you watch the good wife, Nichols, as she doesn't touch her plate at all, and she keeps, pressing her fist to her stomach.
Right. So I'll say, Mrs. Nichols, doctors really don't have an off switch, and I just can't help but notice that you seem to be in a bit of pain. Is there anything wrong with you that I might be able to help with?
Oh, no, I'm fine. Just flustered is all. It's been some time since we've had any guests here. We haven't made many connections in Boston. I try. I've joined the Women's Auxiliary at the Hermetic Order of the Silver Twilight, but all those women there come from money, and we're new money, as it were, and so I don't make very good connections. And in the middle of this excited babbling, she suddenly stands bolt upright and vomits a huge mass of stuff out onto the dinner table. And it takes a moment for you to even recognize what has come out of her stomach. It doesn't look like the normal chewed up food and bile and all that sort of stuff, as you guys all scoot back in your chairs a little bit to avoid the splash. But then you realize you see an enormous amount of different buttons, different shapes and sizes, some metal, some wooden, all different colors. You even see a thimble in this massive vomit on the table. And I'll go ahead and take a sanity roll from each of you.
Oh. Can you luck a sanity roll?
I don't believe so. Let me check on that. One moment.
I'm just going to exclaim, fascinating.
Nope. That is one of the things you cannot use luck on. So, yeah, you absorb it. pretty well, Mr. Monroe. It's not any more strange than a fat larva being taken out of a man.
Yep.
In fact, it's quite less strange. But you, on the other hand, you jump back and you just exclaim something, and it takes a moment for you to gather your wits and for the doctor to take over. But you only lose 1 point of sanity there, Brandon.
Okay. Down.
So we had Monroe's reaction. He just, with a big grin on his face or something, he's like, fascinating. So what do you do, Andrews?
Yeah, so I'll jump into action then. I'll grab my bag and, examine her. The things a doctor would do when someone vomits out weird items. Like, do I have any knowledge of, like, the condition that causes people to eat non-food items?
Give me a hard medicine roll.
Because I know there is something. No.
Again, it's not really your field of expertise.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a first for you. You have read stories about surgeries where objects, had to be removed that for whatever reason people try to eat, but you didn't understand what compelled them to do that. Of course, there are tons of mental illnesses that do that. For your part, since you're a little bit cooler, Mr. Monroe, you see that Detective Nichols was shocked at this, but he, after his moment of open mouth, gaping at his wife, he can't seem to help himself from forking more roast into his mouth, just the roast. And we will close the scene with you guys with Fiona's mortified expression as she looks at this mass of buttons and, sewing accoutrements that she vomited on the table. And we'll head over to Whitmire. So, James, you don't have any luck finding a train out to Arkham. There are still trains running, but it seems the last to Arkham, or the last that would connect you to one to Arkham, has departed by the time you get to the train station.
When is the next one?
6 o'clock in the morning.
Okay. And are there any hotels close to the train station? Or
Yeah.
rooms, I guess. Even like I don't think it'd be like a boarding house, but that type of deal.
Yeah, you can definitely find a place to stay. Also, I know you had mentioned that you wanted to look at the crime scene maybe at night or Mr. Dooley's shop. Did you want to use this night to do that or just get a good night's rest?
I think I'm going to sleep on this one because I don't want to put myself out there any more than I need to be till I get out of here.
Okay, so we will leave you in a hotel room awaiting the morning train that will connect you to one going to Arkham, and we will come back to Johann Mueller as he has slipped into a culvert and he's now beneath Arkham. So yeah, it's pretty dark in there, although intermittently you have lights coming from other storm drains or from like a manhole cover.
Mm-hmm.
And I won't. The only reason I'm having you roll a navigation is to see if you fumble.
Oh.
But your knowledge of the culvert should be enough to get you close to your home.
Navigation is not Johann's strong point. Here we go. That's pretty close, and it's not a fumble.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, you can luck that to get a skill up.
You can't luck to skill, get a skill point.
Oh, that's right. Push it.
He said I didn't need to. It was just checking for a fumble.
Okay, so yeah, you have no problems. It's just a matter of distance you must traverse. Although when you're, halfway to where you think you need to be, you hear like a patter of feet on the concrete somewhere down a way off that you weren't planning on going, and you hear a weird sound. It's like a vocalization of something, but it's just there's no language in it. It's just a weird, like, gibbering sound. But then it goes quiet.
I'll just say out loud that we are just strangers passing. I will go mine way, and you will stay yours. And I'll try to stay in some light. Start moving away from it, as long as it keeps me on course.
Okay. Yeah, you can move away from it. No problem. Although you swear you see a shape look out from this alternative way, and but then maybe not.
I seen those shows.
And so you continue on. You don't want to see it. You don't want to get that sanity loss again. And it, maybe it was just the mind playing tricks on you, but you managed to make it to a storm drain that you can slide out of, crawl your way out of, and you give a quick look around, and your house should be just on the other row of these houses near you.
All right. So I will go, I guess to the nearest corner where I could view my house and make sure it's not swarmed
with police or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, it remains undisturbed. You see your humble abode, something a pensioner would live
Mhm.
in. Plenty of space for a lifelong bachelor, although you are running out of space for the books you've accumulated over the years.
and it also has an earthen basement. So I'll give a quick look around, see if there's anyone other than myself that is very strange or outlandish at this point. If no one,
Nope,
okay,
everything looks undisturbed.
then much like I scurried through the storm drain, I will scurry into my house, and I'll give a listen at the door once I'm inside, and make sure everything's quiet.
Okay. Yeah, there's nothing in anywhere in the house as far as you can ascertain.
Thank God. All right. And then I'll go over to a random pile of books. I will pick it up almost like I'm cutting a deck of cards, and I'll place the was it Vermis?
De Vermis
Yeah,
Mysterious.
De Vermis Mysterious into.
Or if
oh,
you
go for it.
If you prefer, we could just call it the Book of Worms,
Yeah.
as it's translated.
And I'll place the Book of Worms in the middle of where I would have cut this pile of books, and place that on top as hopefully a kind of a, like if anyone comes looking for it, good luck finding it type of thing, right?
Right, yeah.
Better to hide it out in the open. Then I'll go about cleaning myself up and getting different or getting new clothes and throwing away these old grungy torn up ones.
Okay. So yeah, you get changed, you get cleaned up as best you can. You look at your feet, see if the wounds need attention, but they seem to be okay, although you do pick a small fragment of glass out of one of the cuts, and everything is as well as it can be expected, considering you're not entirely sure what happened for the last, I'd say 14 hours when you finally get a look at a clock.
All right, so it's the 14th.
And right, yeah, you have a paper, or you get the Arkham Argus, which has the date on it, so you can just see it's the next day. So the time you missed was, sometime very early this morning until just recently.
And what time is it currently?
It's like 2:00
Okay.
currently.
So I guess I'll get dressed, put some new shoes on, go over to my pipe rack, frown at the missing slot where my pipe would have been.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have multiples. Most pipe smokers do, because they want to rotate them. At least that's what the myth is. But I'll.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would expect you do.
Okay. So yeah, I'll grab another one, fill one of my pouches with tobacco, and head out to send a telegram to my companions.
Okay. And what are you going to tell them?
That I have made it back to Arkham, that I believe I may have found a piece of the puzzle, or I guess I'll work, and to be wary of a man that speaks with, it's not quite a lisp, but would a lisp work for a description?
Yeah, that's fine.
Maybe wary isn't the right word. Maybe like be on the lookout for our mutual friend who speaks with a lisp.
Okay. All right, so you're able to send off that telegram. What's your move after that?
I don't know if I want to start looking through that book. I think
Oh, but you've been looking for it for like the better part of a year now, even longer
I
maybe.
think I will give it a perusal, but not a full study. And I'll be on the lookout mainly for something that the Liber Ivanus might point to in this book. So something to do with the cult.
Okay.
Or was it the cult of starry wisdom or the eye symbol?
Let me share the De Vermis Mysterious with you.
Oh, and I'll cook myself up some buttons and hair for dinner.
Okay, so do you see the image of your book?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's black leather, or a very dark brown, very aged. It's quite a lengthy tome. You can see towards the end you're in the 700s for the page count. It is written in Latin.
That's going to be a problem for me.
There's some 16 chapters. The inside page has the inscription in Latin, Tibi manum innominanum signa stellarum nigrarum eta bufaniformis sadoque sigillium. You want to try a Latin roll?
Yeah, I can give it a try, but I might have to pawn this off on some poor...
Undergrad.
Yeah.
Just bring it to me.
Latin. There we go. Ah.
That's how you raise the skill.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for my
Very nice.
check.
Okay, so a rough translation of that would be, it seems to be a dedication.
Mm-hmm.
There's no title page or copyright information. The book kind of predates those practices, but it does have a dedication that says, "To you, the great not to be named, signs of the black stars, and the seal of the toad-shaped sadoque," which bears in its spelling a name that you remembered from the figurine, which now that it is in your head, you don't seem to have it on your person. You're not sure if you left it back at the boarding house or what, but you had recalled the name Zagua,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a similarity in language that they might be connected.
Okay.
With that check, you also get the opening paragraph, which says, "I will speak of the oldest god of all Egypt, reveal the lore of the Ifrit and the Jinn, the secrets of the assassin sects, the myths of the Arabian ghoul tales, the hidden practices of dervish cults, and the legends of Inner Egypt." And then that's followed by a fragment of poetry. Now, I will give a bonus luck increase to whoever wants to do a dramatic reading of this poem for me. Any takers?
Luck?
Yeah.
My luck's fine.
I'm not seeing it.
I could, where is it?
Let me share it. Let me give you some direction too. Who's going to take it?
I could definitely use a little bit more luck.
Okay, do you see it?
Yep.
All right, so all the gravitas and seriousness you can muster, Mr. Monroe.
All right. Here we go. And at the last from Inner Egypt came the strange dark one to whom the fellas bowed, silent and lean and cryptically proud, and wrapped in fabrics red as sunset flame, throngs pressed around frantic for his commands, but leaving could not tell what they had heard, for while though the nations spread the awestruck word, that wild beast followed him and licked his hands. Soon from the sea a noxious birth began, forgotten lands with weedy spires of gold. The ground was cleft and mad auroras rolled down on the quacking citadels of man. Then, crushing what he had chanced to mold in play, the idiot chaos blew earth's dust away.
All right, thank you.
Clap, 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 clap.
Masterfully done.
Why did I read that
Thank
in
you.
Monroe's voice?
You just can't get my voice out of your head. It's my personal curse on everyone.
He so snubbed you in your historical battle early on in the season that he lives rent-free in your head now to some
My
degree.
second lesser nemesis.
Go ahead.
Hmm?
Were you going to say something, Justin?
Oh, he's not the only one that curses Monroe's voice in his head.
So you know that reference card which you put into your pocket, which still is there, although somewhat the worse for wear from, you guess, wading a little bit in the Miskatonic
Also
River or
had
somewhere else
coffee
that
on
was
it,
wet.
too.
Right. By some miracle, the page number that references this in chapter 12 of the Book of the Worm is still there. So with the same Latin roll, if you want, I will give you that information.
All right, let's give it a try.
No, you don't have to do a
the
new
same
roll.
one.
It's yeah. I wasn't going to push you to keep reading.
Yeah.
Okay, so the page says this: "From whence they came, none can say. Perhaps they are the constructs of beings who dwell on phases beyond the ken of humanity. The carpenter who was taken writhed and babbled about seeing places and versions of events that could not be. Ultimately, he said the thing had taken him to a long, gray, oozing plain beneath skies where the fumes of hell were writhing like a million ghostly and distorted dragons. Perhaps these hunters from beyond can be compelled to travel to spaces and times at the wishes of the summoner. More tests are in order, but the summoning is far too difficult and dangerous. I've lost 3 subjects and cannot afford more. 2 were taken to only the gods know where, and the 3rd was torn asunder with the same ease a child might pluck the legs from an insect. However, the priest told me of means by which to imbue unalloyed metal with a power that made the hunter submissive. Alas, that I had more subjects whose blood I could wash the metal in. And we will close the scene there for this session on Mr. Mueller perusing the Book of the Worm as the sun sets on a sleepy Arkham. Thanks for playing, guys.
Thanks, man.
Hey,
Thank you.
man.
Yeah,
It was a good
it was a
session.
lot of fun.
Thanks, Travis.
All right. Yeah, you guys are welcome. Let's get those luck rolls and skill rolls.
Nah, let's go with Latin.
Oh.
This has been a Death Watch production. Thank you for listening.